The following stories come from Reddit and are the accounts of some of the creepiest calls 911 dispatchers or police answered. These stories are all allegedly true, and some may be a tad disturbing, and may make you feel uneasy or distraught. If you can't handle some disturbing detail, I ask that you turn away now and not watch this video. Without further ado, let's get right to it. Oh, and viewer discretion is advised. The calm man got a call from a guy saying he was sitting in his car with his shotgun and was going to kill himself. He seemed very calm, and I could tell in his voice that he had made up his mind, and this wasn't a cry for help like most of the other suicide calls I receive. He told me he was at one of our train stations but wouldn't tell me which one, so while I had officers out looking for him, I made small talk with him about his family and sports. I even had him laugh a few times. After about 10 minutes of talking, and me thinking I've made progress, he finally says, "Well, it's been nice talking to you, but I gotta get going." He then proceeded to put the gun in his mouth and pull the trigger. I heard his death gurgles. "Please don't die. Buried, but someone might make it down here. Not a dispatcher, and would never want to do it for a living, as I work very closely with some dispatchers. I have been the IT guy for a law enforcement agency, going on 7 years. Now only part-time with them as I needed a change. Our current 911 supervisor pulls calls off of 911 recorders, but some of the previous supervisors would not do it. This of course means that I had to pull 911 calls whenever there was a big incident or a legal request came in. I would listen to the calls, as you should do, to make sure that we got all the correct radio traffic. This of course would mean that you're forced to listen to all of the call. The one that sticks out to me happened about 3 years ago. I was actually repairing some equipment in our dispatch center when the call came in and had to immediately pull the recordings as we all knew it would have been requested. I listened to it all happen and did my best to assist. An 18-year-old called in hysterics and asked for an ambulance because his mom was shot. We of course dispatched immediately, but they were in the middle of nowhere and the closest ambulance was 30 plus minutes away. As the call continued, we got him to tell us what had happened. He had pulled out his hunting rifle to clean it before going hunting the next day. It was an older style bolt-action rifle with no safety and an extremely light trigger pull. He had just pulled it out of the case and accidentally hit the bolt on the side of the table, which caused the gun to fire. The bullet hit the mom in the stomach while standing less than 30 feet away. The father and son were both attempting to stop the bleeding, and the son immediately called 911. At first, you could faintly hear the mom in the background saying, "It's okay, you didn't mean it, baby, it's okay, I love you both." She just repeated this over and over. The father was praying quietly, and the son was sobbing and giving us all the info as we try to assist. The sounds of that call will probably always haunt me. The son just shouted over and over near the end, "Mama, God, Mama, I'm so sorry, Mama. Don't die, Mama. Please." The mom made it nowhere close to the ambulance arrival. The dispatchers were cool and collected and worked like an amazingly well-oiled machine during the whole call. But when the call was over, we all just kind of sat there in silence. Even typing this up made me all teary-eyed. Gotta go wipe my tears and feel better, or I'll be crying in my office. Dispatchers are the unsung heroes. The emotional and mental toll that it takes on people that do the job and do it well is crazy, to say the least. The body in the garage. Got a dropped call from a house that has no phone. We get a lot of phantom calls from vacant houses, usually due to malfunctions with the phone lines or phone company. Anyway, we got a dropped call from a house with no phone, so officers went to make checks. The house was vacant. Right before they left, they looked over at the property next door and could see someone who apparently committed suicide hanging in the garage. A wild party. 911 call taker and dispatcher here. I work in a CCC, Combined Communication Center, and we have 4 agencies working together. We have about 5 call takers during the night. Anyways, one night around 2 to 3 a.m., quiet as can be, one call taker gets a call with only a woman screaming, nothing else, and then the woman disconnects the line. About 5 seconds after that, all our lines light up ringing at once. That's about 16 lines. When we only have 5 call takers, every line we answered was only people screaming with no understanding what was going on. No person would give us anything. No address, no reason why they're calling. Nothing. So, for about 2 to 3 minutes, we have no idea what's going on. Good for us, we can ping cell phones and get a location at least. Well, by this time we got officers rolling. A lot of officers rolling to this location. And right when they get close, we figure out what's going on. There was a party, and there was a shooting. People did die. It's not really creepy when you know that, but for the first couple of minutes when we don't know why people are calling, only screaming, holy cow, it was insane. Static on the end. My uncle works for dispatch in my town, and he recently told my family of the weirdest call he's ever gotten. He says that he had received a call from a landline one night, and when he answered it, there was nothing but static on the other end. This happened 2 or 3 more times. Finally, he calls a squad to go check out the address from the caller ID. When the cops got there and walked into the house, they immediately saw that there was a dead body. The person had been dead for 5 months. The craziest part about it was that there was no electricity or any other utility working. So there is no way they should have been able to get those calls into dispatch. But if they hadn't, who knows how long that person's body would have stayed there. She was thrown out the window. 1979, New York City. Got a call from a crying child. A little boy saying his mom and dad were fighting, and his dad said he was going to throw the mom out of the window. I could hear a terrible fight going on in the background. Women screaming, things breaking, man yelling, etc. The poor kid didn't know his address. We didn't have the technology for call ID, and would have to use reverse telephone books. A trace would practically take forever. Anyway, while I'm trying to get the address, I hear a horrific scream and glass breaking. A few seconds later, the other operators in the room are getting calls about a woman lying in the courtyard who came out of a window. It was very sad. Worst of all is that I'm sure someone else in the apartment building must have heard this, but no one called for help until it was too late. Poor kid. Working 911 in New York City during the 70s/80s was nothing but a nightmare. The city had a very high crime rate and crap technology. It never stops. I was honestly debating whether or not to even post this because it genuinely upsets me. I'm not allowed to give exact details, but one of the worst calls was from a little boy. I think he was 5. He was hiding in his closet because his dad was drunk, and beating the ever-living crap out of his mom. He lived in a very rural area, and it was about an hour drive from the nearest police detachment. I stayed on the phone with him for almost 45 minutes. The guys drive fast when there are kids involved, trying to keep him calm. You literally talk about anything that pops in your head. The weather, favorite TV shows, what his favorite toys are. All the while, you can plainly hear a woman screaming and crying in the background. And as the calls go on, you can still hear the guy beating her. But her screams turn into grunts and moans. You're not allowed to tune it out, because you are constantly typing what you hear. Any details you can get from the background noise is valuable to the officers attending. Anyway, members arrived, arrested the piece of crap, and I hung up once they had the kids safe. And then the phone rang again. Because there is no stopping. There's no time to process what just happened. And honestly, it's probably for the best. A lot of the time, you don't find out the outcome of the call because, as I said, there are always more phones ringing.